I still remember when I really struggled getting more vocabulary into my playing. I was transcribing lots of solos, practicing my 2-5-1s, and I knew all the theory, but when it came time to actually improvise, it just felt like my solos were a bunch of chord scales and chord tones. Lately, I've been doing some clinics in schools around the country, and a lot of students come up to me with similar issues. So in this video, I want to share with you a practice method that I feel really will solve this problem. After a while of this practice, you will be playing the vocabulary that your heroes are playing, but also truly improvising. All the material that you see throughout this video today comes from our brand new resource we just launched here at Jazz Lesson Videos entitled the Jazz Language Method Book. In it, I go over a step-by-step method to integrating important jazz vocabulary into your playing. You will find several dozens of jazz language in major, dominant, phrygian dominant, and melodic minor, as well as full transcriptions from famous solos of Cannonball Adderley, Charlie Parker, and Sonny Stitt. Of all the resources I've made during my time here so far, this one is the most abundant in containing detailed guided text that walks you through a concrete strategy to integrate your favorite lines into your improvisation once and for all. If you're interested in downloading the full resource, you can find a link in the description below and use code METHOD5 for $5 off. So, the first step of this method is to establish 7 different phrases for each of these 4 scales: major, dominant, phrygian dominant, and melodic minor. Just start off with one of these scales. How about for this video, let's do dominant scales. Dominant vocabulary, particularly Mixolydian, is the most versatile language, as any Mixolydian-based dominant phrase can actually work on 7 different kinds of chords, which is all displayed in section 2 of the Jazz Language Method book. I'll show you how this works later, but for now, establish 7 different dominant phrases. You want each of these phrases to just be 1 measure long, entirely filled up with 8 eighth notes. This is because these fully eighth note lines will be very easy to rhythmically embellish later. Here's an example of an eighth note dominant phrase being rhythmically embellished in various different ways. Page 22 of the Jazz Language Method book goes into this a little deeper. You'll also want each of these phrases to start on a different diatonic scale degree. That way, you'll be left with a bank of 7 phrases that start on all 7 scale degrees. This will allow you to connect these in endless possibilities, which I'll show you a little bit later. You'll also want these to be diatonic to the Mixolydian scale. Passing tones and chromatic approach tones are fine, but if you have altered tensions, these will greatly restrict your ability to turn these into fun substitutions later. So, with that being said, how do you actually establish 7 different phrases? In the Jazz Language Method book, I've included 3 must-know jazz transcriptions from Bird, Cannonball, and Sonny Stitt. And I've extracted several dozens of vocabulary from them for you. But of course, you could also do this from any transcription that you like. You could even write out your own lines, but you might run the risk of writing things that are not rooted in jazz vocabulary. I'll leave that choice to you. Anyway, sometimes you might see phrases that you really like, but are not entirely eighth notes, such as measure 26 of Stitt's solo in the tune On the Sunny Side of the Street. In these cases, you could creatively massage it down to eighth notes to establish a fully eighth note dominant line that starts on the 2nd scale degree. Great, so after some hunting and exploring, and you've established your 7 dominant lines that start from every scale degree, I definitely recommend writing them all in the same key, one after the other, for maximum convenience. Here are the 7 that I chose for the book, but of course the possibilities are endless. Alrighty, so once you've got your 7 dominant lines, then it's time to really have some fun. One thing you could do is string them together in countless ways over 1 chord vamps. And you'll want to try to voice lead them into each other. For example, our dominant phrase here that starts on 2 ends on an E flat. So the next line could start to the nearest note up, which is F, or the nearest note down, which is D flat. Let's go with D flat. Now we'll play our line that starts here from the flat 7. And we do encounter a problem here. This second half is getting a bit low on our instrument. If my next phrase were to continue to descend, then I'm going to be completely out of range. So let's do what we call octave displacement. We're going to take this F in the notes after it and move it up an octave. With this technique, all things are possible. Now I'll connect it to the phrase that starts on 3, then connect it to the phrase that starts on 4. Let's hear how all this sounds. Cool. I really recommend starting this process by writing your lines out first. Here are 2 more examples of this found on page 30 of the Jazz Language Method book. Once you've written a few out, feel free to memorize them and get them up to a blazing speed so that you have some nice original lines that you can bust out and shred with later. But for the long term, definitely practice stringing these together at a slow tempo without writing anything down. After a few weeks, you should find a lot of new melodic content within your improvisation. Nice. So the third thing you can do is take just a single one of these phrases and first master it in all 12 keys. For example, I'll choose the second dominant line. After that's feeling really solid, then go ahead and take any tune that you might be working on and fit that phrase in every single spot it could work. Section 3 of the resource dives deeply in all the various ways that you can do this. Let's hear how all this could sound using this phrase over the tune Stablemates by Benny Golson. Cool. So this is not only going to strengthen your flexibility with this vocabulary, but it's also going to deepen your internalization of the tune that you're working on. So another way to practice your 7 lines of vocabulary is to isolate and practice difficult sections of a tune. For example, measures 27 and 28 of Autumn Leaves can trip many people up. So you can isolate these chords and break them down. All these chords qualify for dominant material to be played. This G minor 7 can be diatonically substituted for a C7 as they are a 2-5 to each other. This G flat 7 is already dominant. This F minor 7 can be thought of as a 2 minor 7, so let's substitute it again for the 5-7, which would be B flat 7 in this case. This E7 is already dominant, and A half diminished 7 is technically a rootless F dominant 9. So F dominant 7 material will work great over it. And look at that, all of these chords can contain our dominant language. Let's practice this at half speed so that we'll be able to fit 8 16th notes. Here's our dominant line that starts on the root, which connects perfectly to the G flat 7's third, so we'll play the third dominant phrase in G flat. This connects well to the ninth of B flat 7, so let's play the dominant phrase that starts on the 2. And just keep going till you get a complete line. This line is found in section 7 of the resource where I discuss various potential practice techniques like this one. Let's hear how this sounds over the chord progression. Cool. After you've done a few rounds of exploration like this, you can actually reduce these down by just taking 4-note fragments of your phrases to create something a little more simple. And again, after some exploration of writing this stuff down and then also practicing it without writing it down, you should find yourself a lot more comfortable improvising within these more difficult chord progressions. Awesome, so everything we covered so far was just for mixolydian based dominant language. But don't forget, you can create a bank of 7 lines for any other scale as well, which I provide you with in sections 3 through 6 of the resource. Major 7 vocabulary is also going to work great in 3 minor 7 chords and in 6 minor 7 chords. Melodic minor lines are going to work in a ton of different chords as shown in section 2. So you can make soloing in any tune either really simple with these concepts or a little more complex with some fun experimentation. Let's use Stella by Starlight, for example. Here are the changes. For this E half diminished 7, we could think E Locrian, or we could just play our C7 language. For the next chord, A7 flat 9, let's make it altered, which means we need to use our B flat melodic minor language. I can reduce this next large 2-5 to just a big ol' F7, and the next long 2-5 to just a big ol' B flat dominant 7. Then on this E flat major 7 chord, I'll play some E flat major material, and then switch to E flat melodic minor material to channel the sound of this A flat 7 Lydian dominant. After establishing all the rest of the sounds I want to use, I've provided this etude in section 7 of the resource, as well as several other practicing suggestions. Let's hear how all this sounds. Well, alrighty everyone, that concludes today's video. I really hope it helped. Again, if you want to dive into these concepts even deeper, you can find the full resource, the Jazz Language Method book, in the description below, and use code METHOD5 for $5 off. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, please consider leaving a like and subscribe below, as it really helps this channel grow. Till next time, everyone.